You're listening to 3CR Community Radio, 8:55 a.m. This is Raising Our Voices. You're listening to Bronwyn Trickett from AMIDA, and I'd like to introduce today guests Brenda Penaluna and Lisa Brumtis from Brain Injury Matters. Today we're going to be talking about invisible disabilities. I'd like to ask Brenda and Lisa, I'd like to ask you both some questions about how your disabilities affect you on a daily basis. How does the fact that your disability is invisible affect you when you're out in the community?
Well, I don't usually pick up that I have a disability at any point, even when I'm out in the community.
You mean people don't notice, they don't see, they can't detect?
Not really. The only thing that they've detected, and they've told me about too, because I can't tell, is that I limp a little bit.
Okay.
But I can't tell that I limp. Obviously, maybe.
Okay. Brenda, do you want to talk about how, when you're out in the community, how does your invisible disability affect you?
My mother did most of the parenting when I was a child. I have another sibling who has the same disability as me. My sister and I both have albinism. These days, being albino means you've got a very, very trendy haircut. That most hair colour, I should say, that most people apparently pay thousands of dollars to have their hair the colour of mine.
Of yours this week, right?
Oh, well, I've just had my hair coloured purple. Yeah. So a lot of because I look. Because it's not obvious that a part of my disability is that I'm vision impaired and I'm technically legally blind. People don't know that that's what's going on for me, and so sometimes I'll bump into them, or sometimes they don't realise I can't see things, and that's how it mostly affects me.
Okay. Okay.
But as I started to say, my mum did such a good job of parenting. Her whole philosophy with me, my younger sister who's albino too, and our 5 other siblings was that we were all to be very independent, and we all had to learn to live in the world. And it was such a gift that she gave us all, that I think I was a little bit too independent for a little bit too long. Yeah, right. Yeah. And I didn't want to be conspicuous when I was out and about. So for I think I was in my 50s before I started using a cane.
Okay.
At times that I felt I needed it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Lisa, I remember from previous shows where you've been on Raising Our Voices, you've talked about the acquired brain injury that you have. And I remember we were also talking about how being out in the community and being on public transport can be an issue. How does it affect you when you're on public transport?
It usually doesn't, because the usual public transport that I take, the most common type, the tram, and I usually get on the seat, get onto the seat that's by the door, so I don't really have a problem.
Oh, that's good.
Except when there are dickheads, can I say that term, that sit on that seat, and some of them are real assholes. They're real, and they just kind of lounge around the entire front area and don't even think about moving or going to the side or whatever.
Yes.
And they're just kind of like, hello, you're not the only one on the tram. But I think that's a matter of their humanity as opposed to being kind to the rest of society kind of thing.
Yeah, so their attitude rather than... Okay. Brenda, how about you on public transport? How do you find it affects you?
As a younger person, going on public transport was I would tend to only go to places that I knew exactly where I was going, places that I've been before with other people, because and particularly I would avoid buses or trams, because I can't see where buses are going, what numbers and things like that, until it's right on top of me. So I used to not be very confident about that kind of thing.
Understandably.
Yeah, but these days there's so much technology to support me with public transport. So PTV have an amazing app that I use all the time. So I know I can even look on my phone and I can see where I am on public transport in relation to where I want to go. So I've been quite confident now about getting on buses, particularly where I've got no idea where I am, but I can have set where my bus stop is, and I'll follow the bus and quite confidently get on and off by myself. I really, really love. And even, when you first were had the capacity to be able to call into the metro and then to describe to you where you had to go and stop numbers and things like that, I said to them, so on what side of the street will that bus stop be? And they couldn't give me a description.
No.
Another the bus stop story that I was just talking about, where I had to, when I was working, I had to go out and do a talk to a place that I wasn't familiar with.
Okay.
And I felt comfortable about getting off, finding the train stop easy enough. But then I had on my phone, I was looking for the bus stop, and it looked like the bus stop was on the opposite side of the platform to where I got off the train. So
How confusing.
So I walked over to the other side because I can't see the bus stop sign.
No.
Yeah? And so I walked to the other side of the platform, up over the bridge and down the other side, and I go, I can't find it anywhere.
Okay.
So I got my phone out again and I had a look and I could see what I'd done. I'd gone the wrong way, and then I could easily navigate myself back. So
That's really helpful.
Yeah, it is. It's really good these days.
Okay.
But I had a funny story on a tram one day where, as an older person now, I have a cane.
Yes.
And I got on a tram and I had my cane out, and an old lady stood up and gave me her seat. And I felt so guilty. Oh. No, it's okay. You keep your seat.
Yes, okay. Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Very considerate.
It was, yeah.
Another question I've got is, when you're accessing services, how do you find your invisible disability affects you? So such as banking, shopping, going to a venue when you're socialising, like a restaurant or a bar?
Well, it doesn't usually affect me because I know pretty much, most of the staff at banks and blah, blah.
Okay. You go to them regularly so they get to know you. That makes it easier.
But when I go out, it's happened before. I've been in the queue at a bar, and I was knocked back because looked like I was drunk. I'm thinking, I haven't had one drink yet. And that was a little bit annoying.
Yes.
Nevertheless, it happens.
Okay. Brenda, how do you go?
So similar to me, with banking and, shopping, that kind of thing. I'm a bit uncomfortable to say. I usually only shop at the, like groceries at the big supermarkets.
Yes.
And so they tend to lay out their stores in a similar fashion.
Yes, it is a little bit easier to navigate.
It is, yeah. But there's a lot of, at all supermarkets and any stores that you go to these days, it seems to be that if I have my cane out, or even if I don't, I think that, if I go and ask for assistance, generally it's pretty good. There's one big hardware outlet that if you can find somebody anywhere, I'm not alone with going to that big hardware warehouse and having trouble finding somebody to help you to find something. I know, yeah. But, I think customer service is the same. Everybody has the same experience, whether you've got a disability or not. If they're going to be good, they'll be good, and if they're not, they're not. Yeah.
Well, that's certainly true.
I believe that it helps if you know the people.
Well, it certainly does, yeah. But when you're going to, you know, places that you're not familiar with, I think that's when, you know, for me over the years, I've built up a series of strategies that I use if I'm in situations where I can't see what I'm looking for or I'm having trouble navigating things. And it's that arsenal of tools.
That's smart thinking.
Yeah, that they're the ones that'll get me over the line when I'm in areas that I'm not familiar with.
Being prepared with those. Do you find that medical practitioners have a full understanding of how you are affected on a daily basis?
Oh, God, no.
Oh, do you want to explain how you go with that?
Because I'm blessed that I've got an ABI. So really, they pretty much don't know anything about it.
Okay. Are you talking about
brain information about brain injuries is so very not out there.
Okay. So are you talking about GP or specialist or people that you know or people that you don't know?
Basically everyone that I've come across
don't have an understanding of what you face on a daily basis. Okay.
I think I would say the same as well. So I'm albino, and so that's one part, I think. But how can they? You know, it's only people that know you for a long time. And part of it, I think, is my responsibility to talk to them about, you know, some of the stuff. For me, the lack of pigment in my body doesn't affect a lot of things. But, you know, I could imagine for other people with other kinds of disabilities, you know, some of where your immune system is affected.
Disorders?
Yeah. I mean, I think that could be more challenging.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. What about family? Do your families understand how you're affected?
Oh, I remember being an adult and I was talking to a friend of mine.
Yesterday?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, well, yeah, could have been, yeah. And I was explaining to a friend of mine about, you know, she was asking me, well, what can you see? And that's a common question that people ask. Well, you know, once they
what can you see or what you can't see? What can't you see?
No, they tend to ask, what can you see?
Okay.
Because as soon as I say I'm legally blind, they think I can't see anything.
All right.
Yeah, so they want to know what
assumption.
I can see. Yeah. And my brother happened to be there on that day when my friend asked me, and he said, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that about you. And we were adults, you know.
Right,
we'd grown up in the
wow.
same household for, 18 odd years or something, and he didn't know either.
Okay.
But I think that was because of, and I'll thank you, Mum. Thanks, Mum, for making us just blend in. You know, there was nothing special about you two little girls with albinism. You know, you just got to get on with life, and we were nothing special.
Well, there is certainly an advantage in being able to adapt, I would guess, as being a child as well. When you're facing situations that are often new, being able to adapt would be really handy.
Yep, I agree with you. Yeah.
All right. What about friends? Do friends accept your disability or understand it, have full understanding?
Oh, the people that I consider to be friends,
Yep.
they wouldn't be my friend if they didn't understand or didn't accept.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament to my friends that they commonly make jokes with me. You know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that demonstrates that they have an understanding.
Yeah,
They have an
do.
ease about it.
Yeah, they do. They're beautiful people, and it's. I really like that they feel that they know the boundaries of the kinds of things that they can and can't say, and they're very, in a way that makes them very respectful and really understanding of disability. And I know there are certain things that I might say that they know not to say back, you know, that if I'm making fun of myself, you know, yeah.
Yeah. How about your friends, Lisa? Do you find that they have an understanding?
Actually, it's bizarre. Which friends are you talking about? Pre-injury friends, post-injury friends, the transitory ones?
Right. You're talking about stages. So pre-injury, you had a totally different set of abilities. When you had your injury, then there was a phase of adapting to how your body was then able to do things or not do things. And then post-injury, you're talking about the way that it is, that it's not changing. You don't have an illness that is progressive that's going to become worse. It's quite stable.
I think so.
Okay. So do you have friends that have an understanding of all of that or any of that?
Or through those 3 transitions that you just spoke about?
I think it was a lot easier to deal with me as a person with an ABI, before the injury. So I had lots of friends then. They've now dwindled down to almost not there.
Okay.
And the ones that are there, I choose not to have that much to do with anymore.
Okay. Fair enough.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know what else to say about that.
Do you find that you need to
Sounds
educate...
a bit like Forrest Gump.
Do you find that you need to educate others on what it's like for you day to day?
From my experience, I don't impose that. I don't think that I want to continue to be as inconspicuous, that my disability is inconspicuous until I choose to disclose. I think I'm one of the lucky ones when it comes to invisible disability because it is my choice, mostly. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I like that. I don't want to impose it.
Yeah.
I don't want to impose that on anyone either.
Yeah.
So if they like, they can know about it. If they don't.
Okay.
I'm more than happy to educate.
Yeah.
And try and do it in a sensitive way. So because I think it's a really good thing in terms of then if they come into contact with somebody else with a disability similar to mine, then they're equipped to be able to be respectful.
And I believe there's a difference between like there's a social awareness of disability and making friends more aware of that.
Yes.
Because that's getting a bit more personal.
It is. You're listening to 3CR Community Radio, Raising Our Voices, 8:55 a.m. and also online. We've got Lisa Brumtis from Brain Injury Matters and also Brenda Penaluna with us today talking about invisible disabilities. And I'm aware that there is still quite a lot of barriers for people with disabilities in general in society. We face prejudice, stigma, discrimination. We know that still goes on. Some of us are lucky enough to avoid that, but it is still there. So I want to ask, Lisa, has there been a recurring theme that you wish people already knew about your disability and how it affects your invisible disability?
Recurring theme.
Something that just keeps on coming back over and over, and you're like, I just really wish that the people knew that, or I don't have to explain that.
I'm not stupid.
Right, there we go.
Basically.
Very intelligent. I've noted that.
Not of them. But that's the one thing. Yes, I have a brain injury, but that doesn't make me stupid. Hello.
Brenda, what about for you? Has there been a recurring theme?
It's about so if I meet people randomly, I don't expect them to understand that I can't actually see things. But I do think that if I disclose it, don't be patronising. Listen to what I'm asking for, and then maybe put yourself in that position to, if you're giving me directions to something, don't point and say it's over. Can you see that sign over there? So that would be the kind of thing, is just, put yourself in my shoes if you couldn't see either. And don't, grab me by the arm and think that, that's the only way I can get to point A to point B. But I do want to put a little call out to all the PTV people, that, the people that let me through the barriers, because...
You're talking about public transport, yeah.
I am, yeah. As a person who's legally blind, and it's the same for other people with disabilities who can't easily use the marquee system, the marquee ticketing system, we have a part... Well, those people have a pass, particularly people who are blind and vision impaired. If we have our cane out... we actually can just go through the barriers and we don't have to use our tickets, even though we do have a valid ticket with us. But I cannot for the life of me find which barrier to go to where there's somebody who's going to let me through the barrier. It has to be somebody from public transport to let me through. And, at some of the busier stations, they blend into the crowd, and so I'm looking and looking and looking, and so please, if there's anybody from Public Transport Victoria who's listening to this, or an employee, please wear something identifying. Some of you do wear distinguishable vests, and I really appreciate that. Apparently it's an optional thing, but it's so invaluable for me. But, even me, I can see things. I think of my fellow people who are blind who can't see what I can see. How on earth do they find to get through? Yeah.
That's it. All right. And we've also, in talking about invisible disabilities, we are also including people with intellectual disability, people on the autism spectrum, people with progressive neurological conditions, and those conditions, whether they may be stable or they may be changing. We're talking about how people in the community respond to your invisible disability when you're out in public and when you're at places like a workplace, when you're trying to access services, all those sorts of things. Probably my last question to you that we have time for today would be, is there a need for social change? So, Brenda, would you say, taking into consideration your lifetime experience having a disability, is there a need for change, social change?
Yeah, totally. I think that it take the time to find out where people are at. Just stop, and provide information, provide whatever somebody needs at the level that they're at. Yeah. Some people can, you can give complex instructions and information to some people and they'll take it all in. But, sometimes you just need to be a bit more brief or break it down into smaller chunks for people. But there's also a lot of there's a lot of assumptions about people, whether they're disabled or not. And
there are. That's true.
Yeah. And it's about, us all thinking about being respectful to one another. It's a hard one. It is really a hard one. Yeah.
Lisa, would you say that there's a need for social change?
I believe just because we're here talking.
Yeah, it's an indicator.
Pretty much.
Okay.
So, yes.
Yeah. fair point. Is there a key message or one thing that you'd like people to know or to do? Lisa, would you?
Accept diversity as part of humanity.
That's pretty
Basically,
important.
that's it.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Absolutely.
Try not to make assumptions about people because of their behaviour. I'll tell you something funny that happened to me. I was in a laneway and I was with a friend of mine, and it was dark, and look, I might have had a couple of drinks or two, and I didn't have my cane out, but I was holding on to her arm so she could do sighted guide, and the footpath was quite narrow. And a man came up behind us in his electric wheelchair, getting really grumpy, going, "Get out of my way," you know. But man, I can't see you. You know?
That is funny.
It is. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Raising Our Voices today at 3CR Community Radio. And thank you to Brenda and Lisa for talking about your experiences today. Much appreciated. Thank you very much, and we'll look forward to the next program next month. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to a 3CR podcast produced in the studios of independent community radio station 3CR in Melbourne, Australia. For more information, go to allthews.3cr.org.au.